All right, so today we're going to solve these by factoring. We're going to first learn a property called the zero property, zero product property. If we have an expression like this, x plus 3, parentheses, x plus 2 equals 0, this is an example of a factored version of a quadratic. Remember how we factored it and we'd have two sets of parentheses? What we do is we set each of these equal to 0 individually, solve the equations, and those are our two x values where the parabola goes through the x-axis. So let's do example 1a, and we'll see if you guys can understand what I'm talking about here. What we do is we take each of these individually and we set it up into two equations. We have x plus 5 equals 0, and we have 2x minus 6 equals 0. So we have two equations here that we're going to solve. Okay, so the equation on the left, the x plus 5 equals 0. To solve that, we have to subtract 5 from both sides. So we get x equals negative 5. So there's one of our x values.
Oh, no, wait.
It's negative 5, yeah. We're doing them different today.
What if you do them in your head? Do you have to do the steps?
Nope. Okay, on the second equation, we have to add 6 to both sides. We get 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by 2, and we get x equals 3. So that means our parabola on the x-axis goes through negative 5 and 3. So again, like we did yesterday, I'm going to have you sketch a couple of these. X equals 3, that's at 3. And then x equals negative 5. Put a point at negative 5 and positive 3, and that's where your parabola goes.
So we're always going to have 2
Unless it crosses somewhere up here and your vertex is on the x-axis. If your vertex is on the x-axis, it's only going to cross at one place and you'll only have one answer.
Will we ever have the same answer?
So that's example 1. Example 2, we're going to do the same thing again. We have 6k plus 9 equals 0 and 4k minus 11 equals 0. Oops, I messed up. Minus 11 equals 0. That's a minus sign.
0?
Yeah. So then on the left side, we subtract 9 from both sides. And we get 6k equals negative 9. Now, we are going to have some fractions. But guess what? On the end of course exam, you're also going to have fractions. So you can't be afraid of them.
No.
We get k equals negative 3/2. Remember how solving equations, I asked you to leave those in fraction form? Our answer, negative 3/2.
Why?
Because it's negative 3/2.
Oh.
Because I reduced to 9 over 6.
Oh.
Well, it's supposed to be a minus sign. I messed up.
Why can't
All right, 4k minus 11 equals 0. So we add 11 to both sides. And we get 4k equals 11. Divide both sides by 4. And you get k equals 11 over 4. Now, how would we sketch those on a graph? Yeah, you can. What's negative 3/2? Where is that number? It's negative 1 and 1/2. So it's in between negative 1 and negative 2. There's 1 point. How do we get to 11 over 4? What is that in a mixed number? 4 goes into 11 twice. So we get 2 and 3/4.
Yeah.
So 2 and 3/4 is going to be somewhere between 2 and 3.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. So on letter A, we got to factor this. And this is not one that's a special case because we can't take the square root of the first time. So it's hangman. So we're going to hangman this before we start. Okay. We got x squared and 8. And then 6x. So we got x and x. And then we need two factors that multiply to get 8. 4 and 2.
Or 2 and 4.
Or 2 and 4, either way.
Wait, why did you do that?
Why did I do what?
Never mind.
Okay, because these two numbers multiply to get 8, but add to get 6, right? Remember that?
Yep.
You're going to have to remember factoring rules. So the factors are x plus 4 and x plus 2. Those are your two factors. And then once we get it to this form, we can do what we did on A and B on example 1. We now set up two equations where we have x plus 4 equals 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 4 on both sides here, we get x equals negative 4. Subtract 2 on each side here, and you get x equals negative 2.
Wow.
So this parabola, this quadratic, it crosses the x-axis at negative 4 and negative 2.
So it's in -3.
So negative 4 and negative 2, we can put those 2 points on our graph here. Negative 2, negative 4. All right, now letter B, we're going to factor, but we're not going to do hangman on this one. Do you remember the first step to all factoring problems?
No. Take out the common denominator.
Right. We always want to look to see if they have a common factor to come out of it. 4x squared plus 28x. What is their common factor?
4 factor.
4 and
7. 8.
no.
2.
4 and an x.
They're right.
We're going to take out a 4 and an x.
Oh.
Do you remember that? So if we take out a 4 and an x out of 4x squared, what do we have left? Just x.
It's 7.
Well, for the first term, just x. And then we take out a 4x here, it's plus 7. So this is the factored version of this.
Oh.
Okay, so we just take out what's in common. And then we're ready to separate it into two equations. So some of them you won't have to hangman. Some of them you may just have to factor something out of all of it, and then you're good to go. So here we have 4x equals 0, and we have x plus 7 equals 0. What do we do with this 4x equals 0? What's our first step?
Subtract 4.
No, not subtract 4, divide. And you get x equals 0. Yes, Caleb?
Where'd you get all those numbers from?
Which numbers? All right, so then the second equation, we subtract 7 from both sides, and we get x equals negative 7. So our two intersection points on the x-axis is 0 and negative 7. Oh, sorry. Okay, example 3. We're going to cut out example B on this because we're going to use this entire space for this, okay? So, because otherwise it gets too messy. All right, so 2x squared minus 5x equals 88. Now, what do you see that's different on this one than the ones on the back?
There's an 88.
There's an 88 instead of a 0. We want a 0 there in order to do this. So, since we have an 88 here, we don't want it on this side of the equation. We want it to the other side of the equation. So how do we get it to the other side of the equation? Subtract 88. So we're going to subtract 88 from both sides. Okay, so on the left, what that does is we have 2x squared minus 5x minus 88 equals, and then that will give us the 0 that we want on the right-hand side. So basically, we just moved the 88, other side of the equation, changed its sign, right? And now we have what we want. And now it's just like one of the problems on the back. We look at it to see first, is there a common factor that can come out of all three of those terms? There's not, and we see no perfect squares, so we're going to hangman this. Okay, we get 2x squared on top minus 88, and then minus 5x down here. Now the 2x squared, there's only one way to break that down. We got 2x and x. Now, negative 88. That means one of those factors needs to be positive and one of them needs to be negative. What are some numbers that multiply to get 88?
11 and 8.
11 and 8? Okay. One of them's going to have to be negative, one of them's going to have to be positive. Now, where do we want the 8 and where do we want the 11?
11 on top. I mean, the 8 on top.
The 8 on top and the 11 on bottom. And then this is going to turn out to be your biggest product.
So then the top one is
Right. So let's see if that works out. We get negative 16x and 11x. That does give us negative 5x. So our factors, now remember, you have to circle diagonally on these. When there's numbers in front of the x's, that really makes a difference. So our factors, I'm going to put them right here. We have 2x plus 11, and we have x minus 8. So don't forget to circle diagonally on there. Now we're just like one of those problems we had a while ago. So we said each of these equal to 0. 2x plus 11 equals 0. And x minus 8 equals 0. We'll solve the one on the right first. It's easy, right? Add 8 to both sides. And you get x equals 8. On this side, we subtract 11 from both sides. And you get 2x equals negative 11. Divide both sides by 2. We get x equals negative 11 over 2. All right, letter C. Letter C, I want you to go ahead and make, before we start this, make this 36 a negative on the right. We need that one to be a negative on the right. So go ahead and make that correction on your notes. Make the 36 a negative number. Yes, Garrett?
We didn't graph a.
I know, I said we weren't going to.
Oh,
Okay, so on number C, letter C, I need you to change that 36 right here to a negative number, okay? I need that to be a negative number to work out the way I wanted it to, okay? Now, we start this problem the same way we did letter A up here. We don't want that negative 36 on the right. We want that on the left, to the side of the equal sign. So we're going to add 36 to both sides. Those cancel, so we get y squared plus 9y plus 36 equals 0. Are the first and last perfect squares? Yeah, so we're going to, this is a special case then, right?
You can solve it with hangman.
You could.
Can you add like terms though? The 9y and the y squared.
Well, no, those aren't alike. One's y squared, one's y.
Oh, never mind.
And actually, we also,
Just add the squares.
I'm sorry, I just realized there's another mistake in this problem. Hold on. This needs to be 12y, not 9y. Sorry. That's not going to really matter to you guys. I mean, it's just we're going to change the problem.
12 is not perfect square.
I know, it doesn't need to be. Remember the
So
first
it's
and
gonna be
third.
a hangman.
All we care is the first and third. It's not a hangman, guys. It's a first and third perfect squares. It's a special case. It's the special case that shows up as a plus b squared. Do you remember? We take the square root of y squared to get a, and the square root of the third to get b, so that's 6. So it's y plus 6 squared. So this equals 0. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this is because if you have one that comes out like this, okay, you can break this up into y plus x and y plus x. I mean, y plus 6 and y plus 6. That's the same thing as y plus 6 squared. That's why I wanted this one to come out to be a special case, okay? And yes, I do understand that you could hangman this out, but you do need to recognize special cases. Okay, now we have 2 of the same ones to set equal to 0, so we only really need to do one of them.
Off if we hangmaned it.
That'd be the right
To
answer.
get the correct answer.
I'll answer that later. Okay, so now we're going to cancel out our 6's, and we get x equals negative 6, or y equals negative 6. Now we have 2 answers. There are negative 6 and negative 6. So we only have one answer on here. The answer is y equals negative 6. Okay? Any questions about that one? That one does come out to be a special case. Okay?